Hi, how are you? Okay, Mr. Vennett, what do we have?
Let's see what you got.
You smell that? What is that?
What?
What's that smell?
The cologne?
No.
Opportunity.
No. Money.
Oh, okay.
I smell money.
Michael, how are you?
I found something really interesting.
The whole housing market is propped up on these bad loans. They will fail.
The housing market is rock solid.
It's a time bomb.
So Mike Burry, who gets his hair cut at Supercuts and doesn't wear shoes, knows more than Alan Greenspan.
Dr. Mike Burry, yes, he does.
The Big Short is directed by Adam McKay and it stars Steve Carell, Christian Bale, Ryan Gosling, and Brad Pitt, amongst others. This review contains spoilers. In 2008, Wall Street guru Michael Burry realizes that a number of subprime home loans are in danger of defaulting. Burry bets against the housing market by throwing more than $1 billion of his investors' money into credit default swaps. His actions attract the attention of banker Jared Vennett, played by Ryan Gosling, hedge fund specialist Mark Baum, played by Steve Carell, and other greedy opportunists. Together, these men make a fortune by taking full advantage of the impending economic collapse in America. First and foremost, this film is extremely well acted, and if only for that, you should watch the film if you haven't done so already, but I'll get to that a bit later. Adam McKay resorts to a documentary type of filmmaking, breaking the fourth wall by having characters talk directly to the camera and using it as means to explain the sometimes complicated terms and plots a film like The Big Short inevitably has. Not only does he do that, but he goes a step further by having popular celebrities, promptly introduced by the characters, explain these complicated terms. This happens 2 or 3 times in the film, if I recall correctly. The Big Short is almost inevitably an original film when we talk about its execution. It's not a type of film you'll see very often. It doesn't seem to follow the usual structure you usually find in most scripts. It seems to dive right into the story, providing exposition and setup in a very unusual way. It seems chaotic, especially in the first 10 to 20 minutes while we, the audience, are still adjusting to the film's language. It's almost impossible for me not to think about films like The Wolf of Wall Street or Goodfellas. It's extremely fast-paced, and like the previous examples, characters break the fourth wall frequently. It feels like a Scorsese film on steroids. But unlike Scorsese, McKay isn't going for a classic structure in his storytelling. It's hard to find a true story arc in The Big Short, and maybe it's not even necessary. The choice of shooting this film almost like a documentary by resorting to a shaky camera, actors out of focus, and so on, allows McKay to consciously break a lot of rules. Things like continuity are never an issue in a film like this. When I say this, I don't mean in any way that this is a way to cheat or avoid a theoretically more difficult form of filmmaking. To break the rules, you first need to master them, and The Big Short is a fine example of that. While it might seem chaotic at first glance, the film is extremely well organized and structured. I didn't particularly like having popular celebrities explain complex terms to the audience. The first time it happens, it's Margot Robbie in a bathtub having some champagne. While I must admit it's always a pleasure seeing Margot Robbie do anything, it bothered me a little bit because in that case in particular, it seemed like Robbie was playing a character and not being her actual self. That didn't happen in the scenes with other celebrities, at least I didn't feel that. I would have preferred to have Ryan Gosling do it. He is the character that most often breaks the fourth wall and moves the plot along, delivering exposition very effectively. So in my mind, it would have made more sense that he explained whatever needed explaining at point A or B. It might have been a good idea on paper, but the end result didn't work for me. Despite this being a historical piece, in the sense that it's depicting actual events at a very specific time in our history, these cutaways to celebrities will inevitably date the film in years to come. Although The Big Short is dealing with very serious matters, the film can easily be classified as a black comedy. It's extremely funny and entertaining all the way through. Approaching this material as a full-blown drama might have resulted in a less original film and probably a lot harder to grab the masses. Plus, it would have been very difficult to relate to these protagonists when they are betting on the rest of the world's downfall. But even with that in mind, McKay doesn't ignore the facts. At least 2 of the characters seem bothered by the events and their actions. Steve Carell's Mark Baum might just be the best example of this. It's the character that most frequently mirrors the true nature of what they're trying to achieve. We see his concern and remorse slowly build up as the story unfolds. If there is a protagonist in this film, it's Mark Baum. Another example is a secondary character played by Brad Pitt. In one particular scene, he delivers a speech on how truly horrible it is what they're all doing, what it actually means betting on the downfall of the economy. A scene that could have easily failed for being so obviously moral and cheesy in its nature, but it doesn't. It is very well written and extremely well executed by Brad Pitt. It doesn't insist too much on itself, and it delivers just the right amount of consciousness the film and the characters need at that point. And it also prevents the film from completely ignoring the implications of the horrible story being told. With that said, I have to turn my attention to the two strongest aspects of The Big Short: the editing and the acting. Let's start with the editing. The editing of this film is masterful. Not even 10 minutes into the film and I was already wondering if it was nominated for an Oscar. Sure enough, when the movie was over, I quickly grabbed my phone and confirmed my suspicion. It's the type of editing that can easily be confused as flashy and pretentious, but it's really not. As I mentioned before, McKay delivers a film that only seems chaotic. It's very well organized and structured, and the editing only adds to that vision. I say again, to break the rules you must first master them. The editing of this film, much like its cinematography, breaks a lot of rules, but it does it brilliantly. Anyone who edits can pick up this very quickly and recognize the amount of craft needed to pull it off so effectively. Cutting away mid-sentence, jump cutting during dialogues and actions, it's marvelous to watch and learn. It's not something we haven't seen in other films, we have, but at this level only a few films can compete. Soderbergh's Traffic is one example I can recall right now. Now the acting. At the top of my list is Steve Carell, who once again proves he is at the top of his game and probably one of the best actors working today. His interpretation of Mark Baum is fantastic. Whenever he was in a scene I was smiling. He was stealing the show every time. His acting range and the level of performance he commits to any role he plays is sometimes underestimated. I'm glad he took a step back from his earlier roles and is now venturing into more demanding material and blowing our minds in the process. An Oscar will come soon enough. Christian Bale is Christian Bale, absolutely brilliant in everything he does. His Michael Burry is extremely well interpreted. Once again, Bale gives his body and soul to the character, and you don't even need 5 seconds to forget it's Christian Bale. He is the character instantly. The physicality, the voice, everything falls into place seamlessly. Enough said. Ryan Gosling works wonderfully. He's extremely funny and fills in the shoes of the narrator, if we can call him that, perfectly. I don't want to write another 10 pages on Gosling, but I do think he reveals some problems as an actor, although in this film he works extremely well. What I mean is, looking at his past films, I do feel he lacks a bit of range or maybe is reluctant to venture into stranger waters. This character reminded me sometimes of his character in Crazy Stupid Love. Of course they are different and Gosling is, at the very least, always competent. But I still think he could do more and probably can do more. Brad Pitt is a joy to watch. I've always admired his work, and in The Big Short he leaves his mark. With a minor role and only appearing from time to time, he still manages to be brilliant. His character is very interesting, and his almost absence of emotion is perfect. He conveys so much doing so very little. It's not for everyone. I loved every second of him in this film. My honorable mentions, if you will, go to Finn Wittrock and John Magaro. They form a great duo, mirroring the innocence of age, oblivious to the larger picture of what's really going on. They deliver solid performances and fit in perfectly with the rest of the cast. It's sad to see Marissa Tomei with so little to do, but what she does works very well. It's very obvious that there wasn't a lot of character development for her to work with, but even so, she does her job competently. So I think I've rambled on long enough about this film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a great film from start to finish, even with some reservations I have here and there. It's very original, and it manages to depict truly dramatic events camouflaged in an extremely funny black comedy. Great directing, mind-blowing editing, outstanding performances, fantastic writing. All the right ingredients for a very polished and sophisticated film. The Big Short should stand the test of time with its excellent craft, even if some elements do date it. Before I wrap up this review, I would like to invite you to visit Film Vibe's Facebook page. It has regular posts and a whole bunch of interesting stuff, including every video I upload on this channel. It's all things film, serving the needs of all you film buffs out there. If you have time, check it out and leave a like. I'll be grateful for it and you'll be entertained, I can promise you that much. The link is in the description below, along with my Patreon link if you feel I deserve your support. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this review and I wish you a wonderful day.
Banks have conditioned us to trust them. What have we got from that? 25% interest rates on credit cards. They have screwed us on student loans that we can never get out from under.
When the banks committed the greatest fraud in U.S. history,
No one is paying attention.
It's unbelievable.
4 outsiders risked it all to take them down.
We're going to make the big banks hurt.
How can the banks let this happen? It's fueled by stupidity.
But that's not stupidity, that's fraud.
Tell me the difference between stupid and illegal, and I'll have my wife's brother arrested.
Banks got greedy, and we can profit off of their stupidity.
Do you have any idea what you're up against?
We have to act now.
So Mike Burry, who doesn't wear shoes, knows more than the federal government.
Dr. Mike Burry, yes, he does.
I worry about you.
I'm fine. No, my cab, my cab.
What do you mean?
My cab, schmuck. I love you, honey. I'll talk to you later.
There's some shady stuff going down. God, this is intimate. I feel like I'm financially inside of you or something.
Okay.
If we're right, people lose homes, people lose jobs.
The banks have more incentives than greed.
You're wrong.
We can do everything straight and still go broke.
We need to go all in.
The ratings agencies, the banks, the government,
They're all asleep at the wheel.
You think this is a game?
This is a once-in-a-lifetime deal.
I'm thinking.
Sometimes there's nothing you can do. It's scary.
The banks have frauded the American people. Now we can kick them in the teeth.
Okay, here we go.
The Big Short.
You target strippers with bad loans.
And they're all cash rich.
You're not going to be able to refinance.
On all my loans,
What do you mean, all your loans?
I have 5 houses and a condo.
How much do you make a year?
Rated R.